From the instantly recognizable soundtracks to its unforgettable characters and stories, Final Fantasy is the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of an RPG. Welcome to the channel, everyone. This is Pastime Critic, and today we'll be discussing the Final Fantasy franchise. I'm not sure if it was the too cool for school, no one understands me squall from FF8, the Scar, the Gunblade, or perhaps it was the time-traveling adventure and dynamics about a father and son from FFX. Maybe it was the fantastic fantasy world of FF9, or the shattering records and phenomenon of FF7. But I just have never played a video game series as memorable as the Final Fantasy franchise. To provide a little context in my experience with the series, it all started with FF8 for me, which I consider my first Final Fantasy. Well, I guess let's go back a little further. Technically, 9 was my first introduction. You see, when I was about 6 or 7, I would get dropped off at my aunt's house with my older cousins. My cousins always had every gaming system. They were a little older, at that time teenagers. While I was there to get babysat, I would occasionally play on their systems in the rare times they weren't home or on them. And this is where I was introduced to Final Fantasy IX. I remember the opening and the first few hours of this game like no other. The reason being, my cousins didn't let me save on their memory cards. And so every time I played 9, when I went over, I would have to start every session from the beginning and play as long and far as I could. The furthest being the Black Waltz airship sequence, which is roughly at the 2/3 mark of Disc 1. At the time, and even today, the graphics weren't just incredible. The setting and the art matching its world so perfectly, from the unique character design to its cities and towns, making it easily one of my top 3 Final Fantasy games. Now, maybe a year or two down the line, my parents bought me my first system, which was the PS2, to which I was then able to pick up a copy of FF8. I still remember it clearly. I was in the back of an electronics section of the store, the multiple disc packaging enclosed in its thin plastic cover in my hands, and me getting my parents to agree to purchase it for me. I read the game pamphlet the entire ride home until I was able to rush into my room and plop in Disc 1. Final Fantasy VIII was my first real introduction to gaming. The countless hours in my room just getting lost in its world. There wasn't really the internet yet or cell phones to take my attention away from the game, so I was really invested in the world of 8 in front of me. The Balamb garden, the uniforms, the introduction of your cast one by one, your first mission to get Ifrit. This game, in just the first few hours, had me hooked. I remember just grinding away in the training facility until I was strong enough to beat the T-Rex. But I learned later in life, enemies of this game scale to your level, but I guess ignorance is bliss. And the intro, Squall and Cypher fighting. What a hype. Now, my 8-year-old mind was just getting blown away by the story. How the main cast all grew up in an orphanage. Irvin's plan shot gone wrong in the battle at the end of Disc 1. Playing as Laguna in the past, saving Rinoa in frickin' space. FF8 did it all for me and more. Now, after I got my first Final Fantasy under my belt, I remember purchasing and playing 9 next. Then went to 7, followed by 10, 10-2, 12, and in college, 13 and 13-2. Now, I did play a bit of 15 and have watched a few video clips of it, but unfortunately, I just lost interest at 15 and afterwards. I also didn't play 6 or anything prior. Now, yes, I understand 6 is amazing, but just recently I tried going back to play Chrono Trigger, and it just feels like I have to force myself too much, unfortunately, to play the older games. And unfortunately, I just lost the excitement for the up and coming, hence why I didn't play Lightning Returns 15 or 16. But why, sometimes I ask. And I think it's why I made this video. Maybe I'm trying to understand why the franchise is moving away from its golden era and what made the franchise so great in the first place. I've made mentions about 8 and 9, and while I just don't have the time to really go through each game in depth in one video, I do want to share my view and thoughts on games I've played from the franchise. First, I'll keep it short with 7. It's a heavy, clear favorite for many, and while I think it is good, having played the original, remake, and rebirth, now waiting for the third of the trilogy, I do want to admit I feel it's slightly overrated. It's good, don't get me wrong. And I'm sure just out of this world during its release. But maybe it's because I played 8 and then 9 and then back to 7. It kind of dulled it out for me a bit. But I actually appreciate the remakes for this reason, because I played the remakes when they came out along with everyone else versus going back years later to play them. The remakes are gorgeous. I love all the new storylines that they added. And although I do think Rebirth became a little too fetch quest for me, I do appreciate what they did with the remakes and Rebirth, and am excited for the third and hopefully conclusion of the trilogy. The materia system in 7, however, is some of the best mechanics I feel in the series. It was smooth, and leveling up the materia I found really rewarding. Moving on to X and X2, what can I say about these two? I personally feel they were both great. I know some people think they can be a little linear, much like 13, but I didn't have a problem with it while playing. Maybe I just wasn't that critical then or jaded from life, but I just really enjoyed the game for what it is. And the world of Spira, I think, is one of the best worlds in Final Fantasy. Definitely in my top 3. The cast as well, you could say, to me, is better than the popular cast of FF7, other than Tifa. Big Tifa fan, and I think she really keeps 7 together. But from the reserved Lulu, badass Auron, goofy Wakka, fun Riku, stoic Kamari, and Titus with his charming moments, what a fantastic cast. The epic tale of the father and son dynamic through different time periods, the glimpses we got to see of Jet on his pilgrimage with Yuna's father, and how he changed from the man Titus knew, the spheres we see of his regrets, and how it all comes full circle. Now, for some reason, I see a lot of dislike for X2, but I had equally as much fun with X2 as I did X. The Charlie's Angels vibes were all right, but I really liked Pain, and I actually preferred Yuna and Riku in this game better than X. They just seem to have grown more into their characters. Chasing spheres, the mystery of Shu Yin and Lin, the political conflict of Spira, all great stuff. Now, it was after X2 that I took a tiny break and finally jumped into 12. And for some reason, this is where my memory of Final Fantasy gets a little hazy. Not sure if it was because I was entering into my teenage years and naturally just got busy with life, but I don't think I ever finished 12. But I will say I enjoyed it, from what I can remember. It was very Star Wars-esque in story, and it just wasn't one of the more rememberable games for me, but I do remember enjoying the first half I played. Lastly, I'm going to discuss the 13 trilogy. One of my roommates in college had it, and I found myself playing it on the nights I was in or between classes. It was about a 12-year gap between the main entries, prior, and 13, and I think I'm happy that I had that big of a gap between Final Fantasy games. Now, I only played 13 and 13-2, and I've only seen clips for Lightning Returns. But I'm a sucker for cool hair, outfit designs, and FF13 didn't slack in this aesthetics department at all. The game had its charm. While I do feel, though, that Cocoon and the Grand Pulse were a bit weaker in worlds than the other entries, the Fal'Cie storyline wasn't bad. And the time traveling, that was where it sold me. In 13.2, there's a lot of time travel dynamics, and I actually really enjoyed 13.2 more than 13. It did catch me a little off guard at first that you only had 2 main casts in 13.2, your third being a monster. But being a big fan of Pokemon and Digimon, I actually found myself enjoying the monster catching and progression. And with that ends my personal experience. I can't say anything else on Lightning Returns 15 or 16, because I quite frankly lost interest. 15, honestly, the K-pop boy band, I did play maybe the first 5 minutes, but I just couldn't do it after pushing the car to the gas station. And 16, honestly, just gave me no Final Fantasy energy other than Ifrit. I just lost interest, and it's not because I don't enjoy RPGs or JRPGs anymore. I enjoyed Persona 5, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Dragon Quest XI, which might deserve its own video. But yeah, somewhere after 13.2, the interest in the series was just lost for me. And I sometimes wonder if it did for many others based off the feedback I see. As I reminisce though, I truly hope that Final Fantasy XVII delivers and brings back the magic of what I consider the golden era of the franchise. But hey, it could just be that I'm no longer the target audience, and maybe time has just made it a little harder for me to get that immersion in the series that I once did. But ultimately, I'm appreciative. I'm thankful for the franchise and the memories it gave me, the characters and the worlds that we were introduced to. I just have always held Final Fantasy to such high regard, and always will. But it may just be in reference to what was rather than what is current. Thank you all for watching this love letter to the Final Fantasy franchise, and I hope to see you all in a future video.